There we go. Hey, everybody. Jarrod Draws, the art sale artist here with just a pop-up video, a live stream. I got some G.I. Joe stuff going on today, so I decided I'd go live and share it with you guys. So, hey, howdy. I hope everybody is having a good time. I've got some G.I. Joe figures that came in the mail today, so I decided to open those with you guys. And also, I've got the layout down for a Keelhaul from G.I. Joe Drawing that I'm doing on a page from a Navy manual, and I decided to do that with you guys live as well. So I guess I'll get started. I've got my boxes of stuff that came in the mail just off screen. I'm going to go ahead and grab one. All right, this one, as you can see, I already opened the seal on it. I ordered from Super 7 their latest series of the O-Rings G.I. Joes, their Reaction Plus figures. Hey, you want to say hey to Doc Strange and Heinz K in the chat. Hello to both y'all. Thanks for stopping by. Said I'm going to be opening some G.I. Joe stuff that I got in the mail, and then I'm going to be doing some drawing because I figured, might as well do it with you guys. I'm going to be doing it either way. So, let's see what's on top. All right, first one out of the box. This is their latest series. This is Super 7's latest Reaction Plus series. I'm really quite taken with the Reaction Plus figures. And on top on this one is Destro. And first of all, I'm a sucker for 3 3/4 with the O-ring, and that's exactly what Super 7's doing these days. And yeah, Destro. I dig this one. I don't know that I've ever seen Destro in the trench coat before. If they did one of those, I don't remember. So, absolutely cool Destro. He's the first one out of the box for my Super 7. I dig it. Let's find out who's next. I see you in the chat, Doc Strange. I got you. Don't forget to remind me on Saturday, though. I got to record with Doc Strange on Saturday. We're going to be talking about the house that dripped blood for his podcast series. So looking forward to that, Doc. The next one out of the box is Pythona. All right. I dig that because I remember in what was about 87, 88 when Cobra Law figures came out. They came out with what Globulus, Nemesis Enforcer, and the red dude whose name I'm never going to remember. But they never did a Pythona. So as far as I know, unless it's sort of a collector's exclusive or something like that that I missed, this might be the first Pythona figure. So that is cool. Heinz K in the chat says, I can actually show you. He said, oh, man, I did the classified series. Maybe I should have done Super 7. Interesting you should say that, Heinz, because I was doing classifieds. I had a bunch of classifieds. I don't know how many, but a lot. And Super 7 kind of kept trickling out these Reaction Plus O-ring figures that were a lot more like the classics that I collected. So I actually did make that decision, Heinz. I went to the Super 7 and I actually sold off almost all my classifieds. I just did a big run of them on eBay. I like them and all, but they take up a bit more space. I am an out of package collector, so these will actually get opened, put on a figure stand, and put in my cabinet with the rest of them. And it's just so much more space friendly to do the Super 7s. And that's my era, 3 3/4 inch with the O-ring. It's just what I do. So yeah, I did make that decision, Heinz. Nothing against the classifieds. I think the classifieds are very cool. It's just like, I liked the classifieds. I love the Super 7. So I decided that's where I'm going to focus my G.I. Joe collecting. So Pythona. All right. Doc Strange says, man, not a big fan of the Cobra backstory from the movie. Heresy, I know. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are turned off from the G.I. Joe movie. Like the Cobra Law was sort of one step too far for folks. I'm not, that's not heresy. I was a little more accepting of it than most, the whole Cobra Law thing. And I think it doesn't always, but I think there's a large crossover when it comes to age. My brother Jason the Weasel Skull is 5 years older than me, and he liked G.I. Joe too, but Cobra Law was a step too far for him. I was 11, 12 when it came out. So Jason was 16, 17. And so he was at an age where he couldn't accept that. And I was a younger age. So like, I think when you're younger, you accept the weird stuff a little bit more. So Heinz is pointing out that these Super 7s, and the next one out of the pack is another Snake Eye. I think this is their third Snake Eyes, because I mean, you kind of keep having to sell Snake Eyes over and over, but right, that's the name of the game. This is Arctic. I think it says Arctic. Yeah, Snake Eyes Commando Arctic. So yeah, I remember seeing him a little bit more on the cartoons and stuff too, but Heinz points out that the packaging is very retro, very cool. I agree. Super 7 has done a great job. I'll just tell you guys, if you're interested, I subscribe directly to their newsletter. This pack is 4, and I want to say end to end with shipping and everything, it was like $120. So you're looking at about $30 a figure. So I mean, classifieds are, you can actually find them a little better than that a lot of the time. So it's kind of a question, really, just which one do you like better? I feel like they put out more classified, so it is a bit more of a financial investment for classifieds overall. But again, you're still paying, if you're getting them direct from Super 7 like I am, you're paying about $30 a figure. So it's not the world's greatest price point, but I like them. So to me, it's worth it. But I get it if people would be scared off from that. Heinz is thinking about switching. Says, anybody want to buy some classifieds? Doc Strange says that he loves the classic black Snake Eyes. Loves the packaging. He reminds me of being a kid. I mean, he had a few Joes. I mean, classic black Snake Eyes is always the coolest. Most Joe collectors really like version 2 Snake Eyes from 1986, 80. It's either 85 or 86. The first one that came with timber is usually everybody's favorite. One of my favorite things about the Super 7s is, while they do the occasional character that, kind of a remake, they've remade Snake Eyes. They did it in more of the cartoon color scheme. And then, they remade CoverGirl, and it was kind of neat getting CoverGirl in a individual pack instead of having to get her with the Wolverine. So what I'm trying to say is, even with the remakes they do, they put a little twist on them to make them interesting. And in this case, we've seen Arctic Snake Eyes several times in comics and cartoon. So they do lean on some cartoon characters. We saw Pythona just a minute ago. And so the fourth one is also from the movie, Big Lob. I always found Big Lob to be kind of fascinating because he was a character from G.I. Joe, the movie, and they never, well, I don't want to say never, but in 87, 88, when the movie was popular, they didn't do any figures of Big Lob. And I always thought that was weird. I don't know if my pet theory was that they didn't do Big Lob because they had just done Hardball. And maybe they thought it was just one too many sports related guys. That's just Jared's weird theory. That's been in my brain since I was probably 12 years old. But yeah, I thought it was cool that Super 7 did a Big Lob. Now I've heard that like Hasbro did a G.I. Joe Collectors Club exclusive, so there was a Big Lob before this. But it's neat that he's easier to find and more available here as a Reaction Plus. So yeah, I have been quite taken with the Reaction Plus figures. I want to say this is wave, it's either 3 or 4. And they usually drop 4 figures per wave, something like that. And I've gotten every wave so far, so I will be sticking with them. Again, no slight on the classifieds. I had a bunch of classifieds. I still have a couple. I backed the Dragonfly, which I did a mail call episode here as a live stream on Longbox, I think, when I opened that. So I do have that. And I love the Dragonfly. So that big old Dragonfly is out in my man cave. So I kept like Wild Bill to go with it, and I kept Beachhead to put, I think, in the second seat because Beachhead's my favorite Joe. Other than that, I think I got rid of all my classifieds. But anyway, Big Lob. Big Lob is the fourth and final. So that is package 1 from Super 7. I'll show you those again real quick. They will open. I have 2 more packages to open. They're both eBay packages for my retro collection. But real quick, for the Super 7s, it came with Trenchcoat Destro, which I think is very cool. Pythona, which I also think is cool since she never got a figure back in her heyday. Arctic Snake Eyes. And Big Lob. So I'm pretty happy with all those. If I had to pick a favorite, goodness, this is tough. I think the best looking one is Destro in the trench coat. That's just a baller look. The one I'm probably most happy, it's kind of a tie since they never did Big Lob or Pythona back in the day. I'm about equally as pleased with those two. And I mean, nothing, it's Snake Eyes, nothing against Snake Eyes. It's just, you and I and every G.I. Joe collector knows that there's 127 versions of Snake Eyes. So there you go. I want to welcome Scott to the chat. It says there's also the fact that tween boys in the 80s would have a field day with the name Big Lob. I'm not 100% sure where we're going with that, but I wouldn't admit to it if I did. And I want to welcome Jim, the Joe Junkie, to the chat, who said he was going to back off classified figures, but last month's of purchases say different. So apparently they got Jim again. Yeah, Jim, you probably heard, and I probably told you that I've really backed off classified, sold almost all of mine because I am going to focus on the Super 7 O-ring figures, which I love. Nothing against classifieds. Once again, I think they're great. Just this is my preference. All right, let me grab my 2 eBay packages. They're right off screen here. There's one, and there's the other. So let's find out what I've got here. Let's see. I'm gonna grab my scissors and open up this first one. All right. Let's see what we got in this one. It's the little black box, and in the little black box is the Cobra Stinger driver. Cobra Stinger driver. Okay, so my Cobra Stinger driver that I just opened the box of, he has very tight knee joints. He needs his O-ring replaced, which is not a problem. I'm a professional O-ring replacer. It's not bad. It's just a little loose. But yeah, Cobra Stinger driver from 1984. In fact, between that one and what's in this box is going to be the last of the 84 figures that I need. So there he is. I've done this thing where I'm slowly buying the figures, starting with 82 originals, and just to eventually collect them all. And I finished 82 about 6 months ago, and then I finished 83 a couple months ago, and I only needed 2 figures from 84. One was Cobra Stinger driver, and that's him. I will be replacing his O-ring. He's a little loose at the waist. That's no big deal, though. Like I said, I'm kind of a pro at that. And then if this is the correct order, then I will be good to go for 1984. And then in 1985, I actually only need 2 figures, but they're hard to find and they're expensive. So the 2 I need from 85 are Starduster and Tripwire version 2. There's a red version of Tripwire who came with, like, Jim will know in the chat. What did he come with? Is he one of the ones that came with a cassette or something like that? Anyway, I looked online and red Tripwire is going to set me back about $200. So I knew it was coming. So I've been saving for it. And I might consider just holding off on that until we go to Winterfest. I'm meeting Jim, the Joe Junkie, at Winterfest in Shepherdsville, Kentucky in January. I think you can go to GIJoeWinterfest.com if you're interested. Jim and I are going to be hosting a dinner after the show on Saturday night. So if you would like to join Jim and I on the Saturday night of Winterfest in Shepherdsville, Kentucky, you can do that. But anyway, I'm thinking about just kind of seeing if I can hunt Tripwire version 2 down there just for fun. We'll see. All right, so here's my second, and from eBay. Oh, he's nice, and he's good to go. He doesn't need no O-ring or nothing. It's Clutch version 2 from Vamp Mark II. So basically, I was just missing the two Jeep drivers from my collection. Most of my collection from 84 are the figures that I had as a kid from 84, and then a few that I found at yard sales along the way over the last several years, but mostly made up the ones I had as a kid. Clearly, I never had the Vamp Mark II or the Stinger because I didn't have either of these guys. But now that I do, Jarrod's all done with 1984. So we're on to 85, and I only have the 2 to 5. I knew Jim would help me out with that tripwire. Listening fun tripwire. It came with a cassette. I thought I was onto something with that. So yeah, he's an expensive one. He's harder to find, but just a matter of whether or not I go ahead and crack and buy him on eBay, Jim, before we head to Winterfest, or if I am patient enough. You know, maybe if I'm patient enough, I can get him at Winterfest. Maybe I can get him bundled in with a couple other things and save a few bucks. You know how that goes when you do toy deals at the live shows. Sometimes you can get a little better deal than you would on eBay. So I might try for that. We'll see. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, Jim. What would you do? What would Jim the Joe Junkie do? All right. I'm switching to reading glasses, or in my case, drawing glasses. And speaking of switching, I'm going to switch my camera to top down because I am about to do some drawing. I did a loose pencil layout. This is a commission for one of our friends of the show. And I am drawing on, let me get the cover here for the book itself. I'm drawing on the a naval manual, actual Navy manual. It's Aerodynamics for Naval Aviators. And I posted this on social media recently. And I did a Maverick from Top Gun piece on this. And one of our friends of the show hit me up and said, hey, do a Keelhaul on that Navy manual. And I said, is that just a recommendation, or is that an actual commission request? And he said it was a commission request. So I'm going to get started on this. I am going to start by doing my line work with a brand new, because I want it to be new and sharp right out of the package, Sharpie. I'm going to use the Sharpie Extreme. I prefer the Extreme because it has fade resistance in it. So it'll last longer than a standard Sharpie. It'll be more resistant to UV light and all that stuff. So I will, pardon my noise as I arrange my microphone a little bit to get out of my drawing space. I will get started on Keelhaul. I've got my reference picture. I thought I had a reference of him here. I got 2 screens going, so I want to make sure I've got, like I said, I've got the basic pill on down, but I want my reference picture up to also follow. I have that right off screen, and it also has the colors on it. So when I go to color it, I'll have the color scheme already figured out. So we shall begin the drawing of the Keelhaul. So the real question is, who amongst us in watching land here with me today had a Keelhaul? Because, you know, mostly that also means that you also had a flag, but not in my case. I have a Keelhaul and I have no USS flag. And I honestly don't know where I picked that Keelhaul up. It must have been at a yard sale, because I have one. He's really loose though. Like all of his joints are, like, every joint is loose. Like, I think I put a new O-ring in him, but like his knees and his elbows and stuff are like super loose. All right, Jim got back to me on my decision making on when to get Tripwire version 2. Let's see. It all depends on how long you want to wait to finish 1985. I haven't seen a Listen Fun Tripwire in person. So, you know, here's the thing, Jim. The last time I saw a Listen and Fun Tripwire in person was at Winterfest last year. A dude had it there. I synced it with my eyes. Now, my whole thing, too, though, is I think the reason that I didn't necessarily pull the trigger on that at Winterfest last year was because I think he had it complete and unopened in in the packaging and everything. So I think he wanted, you know, I'm looking down the barrel of $200. I think he wanted, obviously, in that condition, I think he wanted more, and rightfully so. But I was not prepared to go any higher than that. So I think that's why. But I think I don't, yeah, to piggyback off your comment though, Jim, I don't think I've ever seen a loose one. And if you know me, you know that I am a loose figure collector. So there. All right, let's get this eyebrow done. Mm-hmm. Scott jumps in and says, I didn't have this figure. Isn't Keelhaul a form of naval torture, dragging someone under the boat or something like? Absolutely. Yes, it is. That is correct. It is an old school form of nautical torture. You are right, sir. So what I want to know is how Admiral Keelhaul here got that nickname. Dude must have gotten some serious trouble back in the day. So right now I'm using the very sharp Sharpie of the again Sharpie Extreme. I prefer them, and luckily, knock on wood, for the last several months, the 4-packs of these Sharpie Extremes have been on Amazon for pretty cheap. I want to say it's like around $5 for a 4-pack, which is not bad at all. So yeah, I've been pretty happy about that. Sharpies, I mean, they're not expensive markers, but they're not super cheap either. So it's pretty exciting for me when I find them at that price. So yeah, I am gonna just do some of the light line work. I've got a Sharpie no bleed right here for if I need to get into some finer stuff. Now I'm doing more of an animated style on Keelhaul, although my reference, I think the reference picture that I'm using is actually from a panel in one of the comics. But I'm gonna adjust it a little. I'm gonna, because all my other drawings from my G.I. Joe series are animated style. So I am basically gonna dumb down, if you will, some of line work and go a little more block shape to give it a more animated look. So that's what I am going to be doing. I'm trying to remember what the last guy G.I. Joe drawing I did was. It might have been Spirit. It might have been Spirit Iron Knife. Which just fun behind the inside baseball, kind of behind the scenes information. So I did the Spirit Iron Knife. I think I drew that one when we were live. Not unlike this, but we were doing Aaron Moss's Real American Headcast. And I really was pleased with it. And I sent it to my print shop, and they do great work. It's a local print shop that makes my prints for me. But I probably need to talk to them because I did him in a more, reddish skin as a Native American Joe. But when they printed it, like, it's even more red than it is on the original. It's almost too red. It's almost like comically. I'm going to get in trouble with a certain crowd kind of red on it. I mean, it's not that bad, but it was enough for me to notice, and I was like, I want to get that. I want to get that addressed. So when I get them in bundles of 8. Once I get that batch of 8 sold and I reorder, I'm going to message them and say, hey, can you go a little less red on this one? So yeah, again, I'm a little bit cartoonizing old Keelhaul on this one. Jim said that he must have overlooked the tripwire at Winter. It was I had to ask a guy about the tripwire that you quote unquote overlooked. I don't know that he had it out. I think it was in like a tub. When I told him I was looking for it, that like he had to pull it out of a tub. I don't think it was on display, which is probably how you quote unquote missed it. But you were buying a lot of Sky Striker shells at the time. And that reminds me, I got a package of neat stuff that I've been saving for you, Jim. And then I don't know if this has ever happened to you before, Jim, but my wife did some cleaning and organizing. Put my air quotes on that. And now I don't know where that box of stuff I have for you is, but I will find it. Now, the real question is it worth sending it to you at this point, or should I just wait it out and give it to you at Joe Fest? I might do that just to see if I can find anything else to toss in there. In the meantime, I might just bring it to you at Joe Fest. But I have found a couple of vehicle shells I think you can make use of, and there's a couple other things in there, and I can't remember what they are. I'm not trying to be coy. I just can't remember what the other things are in there. There we go. Hey, I want to say hi to G.I. Joe RPG Stories in the chat, and you are absolutely right. This is a Keelhaul piece. I was showing the other guys earlier, but I'll show you since you stopped by with interest. I picked up an actual naval manual aerodynamics for naval aviators, on which I drew Maverick from Top Gun. That was the main reason I picked it up, but I posted that book online, and a friend of our podcast network here said, "Hey, do a Keelhaul." And I said, "Are you just making a recommendation, or are you placing a commission order?" He said, "I'm placing a commission order." And I said, "Oh, goodness." And I appreciate all the commissions I get for these. And so I am working on Bradley Doug Delo's piece right now. So I was kind of hoping he might be able to stop by and see it. But even if he can't, that's fine, because we will have it. We will have it for posterity here on the recording. So he'll be able to see it at his leisure. Mm-hmm. So yeah, always appreciate the commission request. I like the G.I. Joe commission request because I don't charge very much for these. By the way, these are very affordable, because in the G.I. Joe world, and most of my art world, by the way, just a peek behind the curtain on that is most of the money's made in the prints. I draw a piece and the print will just keep paying me over time. So I don't mind doing these Joe ones, especially because I do them all in these animated styles. So they're not super difficult. And that way I get another print to sell. My G.I. Joe print collection just grows and grows. Scott's being very nice to me in the chat. He says, "Commissions from Jarrod 100% worth it. You did an amazing Hagrid for my middle niece a couple years ago." And Scott, I had forgotten that I did that for you or your niece. So thank you for reminding me. That's pretty cool. I got a little fan off screen. I'm going to turn this little fan on. Hopefully it won't make too much noise, but it's a little stuffy back here sometimes. In this back room where I do my drawings. But thank you, Scott. It was very nice of you to give me a shout out like that. All right, Jim. I see you said you've got some more items and we can swap at Winterfest. I'm sure you always find cool stuff. You're better at finding stuff than me, Jim. Like I am called the yard sale artist, man. And I do a lot of yard sale and I find cool stuff, but I swear Jim's one of the few people out there that does better than me in the hunts. Of course, he's a little bit more targeted, he finds the cool toy stuff and comic stuff. And I'm at Goodwill finding all kinds of random stuff. In fact, the last trip I made to Goodwill, which was Monday, I found someone had dropped off not one, not two, but three CB radios, Cobra brand CB radios. And I've had some success flipping CB radios in the past, making a little coinage on that. So I snagged them up. Now I got home to find out, and they were all in very good shape, by the way. And I got home to find out that the ones I'd gotten weren't one of the more high ends. Like I've found some at yard sales before that have netted me literally hundreds per radio. So when I saw them at $3 a piece at my Goodwill, I said, "Oh yeah, I'll take the risk on that." And I found out they weren't the super nice ones, but those still do about, I don't know, I would say 20, 25, maybe $30 each. And you know what? I'll trade $3 for $30 all day long. So yeah, CB radios, which was, it's not something you always spot at a Goodwill, but that was my most recent interesting purchase. But you know what? In the entire time that I have shopped at my local Goodwill, I have found 2 G.I. Joe items, and I've been shopping at my local Goodwill on the regular now for almost 6 years. And I have found 2 G.I. Joe items. One was a Hiss tank, and it was a more modern one too. It wasn't a vintage. It was like a 2021 Walmart era Hiss tank. And then the other thing I found, which really, really made me happy, it's the only loose figure or any G.I. Joe figure I've ever found at my Goodwill. And it wasn't even technically a Joe. It was Smoke from the Mortal Kombat line that was done, in the 3 3/4, very similar to G.I. Joe. So yes, I found Smoke. It was in like one of those, sometimes they'll do like a Ziploc bag full of random toys and you just buy the whole bag for like $2 or something like that. And so, yeah, I found Smoke. As the kids say, I wanted all that smoke. And I was very excited. And because as Jim knows, I have a penchant for Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter Joes. That's my favorite sort of quote unquote sub team. It's not officially called a sub team, but my subcategory of G.I. Joes, that's my very, very favorite. Love the Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter Joes. Love them, love them, love them. Okay, Keelhaul is starting to come together with the basic line work. Again, I have kind of quote unquote dumbed down some of the elements from the original piece. Again, I'm pretty sure the reference photo I found for him is from the comic, because usually I use reference pics from the cartoon. So here's another funny kind of inside baseball story about that. But yeah, this one I think is from the comic. So I'm kind of simplifying it so it will fit in nicer with my cartoon motif of all the other drawings. But anyway, I do a lot of these drawings live on Aaron Moss's Real American Headcast on his live recordings on his network here on YouTube. Usually when he asks me to be on the show, I say, okay, and about half the time I'll do a Joe drawing while we talk on the show. And he always assigns us a cartoon to watch and a comic to read. And so what I do is while I'm watching the cartoon, I'm not only watching it for the story and for us to talk about it, on the show, as we do, I'm also watching it just to see if there's any cool characters I haven't drawn yet, and especially any cool poses that they're in. And I'll be watching the cartoon, and if I see a character that I haven't drawn yet in that episode, and maybe they're in a cool pose or whatever, I will literally freeze frame it, screenshot it, and that will become my reference picture for that. So that's a little more inside baseball on how Jarrod selects his stuff that he does over on Aaron's show. It's usually from the actual cartoon that we watched for the episode. Now you get a little more insight on how my weird brain works. All right, let me catch up with the chat. Let's see. Scott says it'd be fun to see them make some Joes in the same style materials as the old Bionic 6 toys. I'm not familiar with Bionic 6 toys off the top of my head. I'll have to Google that. I don't remember Bionic 6. I'll have to look at that. G.I. Joe RPG Story says, you're doing the outline with Sharpie. I thought you used a fancier marker. I mentioned earlier, it must have been before you got here. Yes, I do all the heavy line, initial heavy line work with a Sharpie, but it's slightly fancy because I use the Sharpie Extreme. They're harder to find, but they are much more UV resistant. So, yeah, I am definitely doing that. But yeah, I learned long ago because I actually did it backwards. I used to start with another Sharpie brand. This is a Sharpie No Bleed. And I really like Sharpie No Bleeds because as they soak into the paper, they literally don't bleed. Like a regular Sharpie or a Sharpie Extreme here, if you zoomed in real close, you'll see where the ink soaks in the paper and kind of just at the edges fuzzes a little. Luckily, this paper that I'm using doesn't tend to do that. So it makes life a little easier. But I used to start with the No Bleed and I draw out all the shapes. Like I would draw out a thick line, like I would literally like draw the inside curve and then the outside curve, and then I would fill it in with this. And I just realized that, especially once I got these extremes, that it's really no difference to the quality of the piece to do it the other way, and it's slightly faster. So yeah, I'm giving you guys all the inside scoop on Jarrod's process here. But yeah, you're not the first person who's been surprised to be like, oh, a Sharpie? Yeah, I use a Sharpie. I do like the Sharpie Extremes quite a bit. So yeah, they do what I need them to do. I think I have everything laid out here that I want in the basics. So I'm going to grab my eraser and get rid of some of these pencil lines that I left over. So yeah, I'm going to do a light erase. I don't want to erase too heavily. I'm going to rub the eraser just lightly because, you know, these book pages, this is where book page sketches become challenging, is that most books don't have the highest quality paper. So if you erase too hard on it, it will actually tear the page. Again, this paper for the Navy manual is a little more robust, which makes sense because you'd be, you know, bringing your manual with you deployed and all that stuff. So it's a little more robust. And it's also a nice consistency. Like I said, once the ink from the Sharpie hits it, it doesn't soak like other pages do. So yeah, there's a lot of pluses to this one. This is the first G.I. Joe character that I have drawn on a Navy manual. I've drawn 26 or so other G.I. Joe drawings in my series. And they have all been drawn on Army manual, the rifle and platoon manual. So I just snagged this Navy manual at the Goodwill a few weeks ago, again with the original intent, and I have finished the Maverick from Top Gun. And yeah, one of our faithful Crusaders Club members here at Longbox Crusade said, hey man, do me a Keelhaul on that. So he will be getting the very first Joe on the Navy book. Every time you think you're done getting rid of old pencil lines, you always find more. You always find more. Again, I don't want to go too heavy on the erasing. Always find more. All right. Question for G.I. Joe RPG Stories, if you're still watching. Is that Dave? Are you Dave? Is that the handle for Dave? I want to say it is. If not, then forgive my, just, file it off as Jarrod's Weird. But I think I know him as Dave. Yes. Yep, there it is. Dave Martell. Yeah. My buddy from Canada. Dave's a good dude. He chats with us over on Aaron's Real American Headcast from time to time, and does cool RPG story stuff. He's got a I don't know if you consider it a blog page or a website, Dave, but feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll put it up on the screen. And Dave was kind enough to order a Cobra Commander from me as a print of my Cobra Commander on the Army manual. So thank you for that, Dave. Oh, okay. Dave says he's about to leave to go play G.I. Joe RPG with Aaron. I tell you what, just you tell Aaron to put this on in the background. You guys must be recording another episode of the RPG series that Aaron's doing on his American Headcast. So that'll be fun. I know that's your wheelhouse, Dave. I hope you have a really good time over there. Say hey to the fellows for me, please. Okay, we've got some fancy-fied line work going here. There's always more pencil lines. Every time I look, oh, there's a pencil line that needs to be erased. There will never be an end to the pencil lines. I'm here to tell you. Okay. I have a pencil line here that I just can't get to go away for some reason. So instead of tearing the paper, I'm just going to draw right over it so it disappears under the black ink. These are the things that we have to do sometimes. All right. So now that I have all the basic line work put down with the Sharpie, I'm going to embolden the lines from, first of all, the entire perimeter, the outside perimeter. So I'm going to make every line that goes around the edge of this drawing a little thicker. It'll make the drawing pop a little nicer, I assure you. Or maybe it's one of those things that only Jarrod does and only Jarrod notices. But I'm going to bold up the exterior lines a bit. That allows you to do a couple of things. First of all, it makes the drawing pop off the page a little better. I've also hidden a couple more of those pencil lines I've talked about before. I just saw another one that I ran right over. And then it'll allow me, if you look really close, right here, there's a little bit of a line that didn't match up just right. So by thickening this line, it'll give me a chance to right that wrong. Come across there and then make the line basically look a little bit smoother than it did on my first pass. So that's just another helpful thing of thickening your exterior line. Not only will it make the piece pop a little bit, and I still have to connect these a little bit, and that's okay, because having a nice bold outside line, there's nothing wrong with that, especially when you get to the whatever's kind of in the forefront closer to the camera, to have a thicker line. So if it's a little thicker on the top of his hat than it is on the back, I'm totally okay with that, because it'll add a neat slight bit of depth to it. So there we go. So again, I'm just thickening everything on the perimeter to give it a bolder look to come off the page. Even if it's just a little bit subtle, I think it looks a little better. I think it starts to come off the page a little better. So once I've done that, I will also bold the edge of any part of clothing, like the hat here. I'm going to give it a little bit, not much, because I've done a pretty good bold line, but make it a little bit thicker. And the collar of his jacket be a little bit thicker. Little fun tips about line weight from Jarrod for all those watching, who I really appreciate. I was going to draw this this afternoon anyway, and I thought, you know what, I'll do a live on this one. Because why not? Why not draw and chat with folks online? Be a little more fun. All right, I'm going to fill this in. With black. About ready to go to colors. Mm-hmm. So if you're still listening or watching out there, I'm not fishing for commissions, just conversationally. Who would you have me do next out of the Navy manual? Since I've now I'm cracking the seal on that with Keelhaul. You have any suggestions on what other Joe would look good on the Navy manual? Be interested in y'all's thoughts. All right, now I'm gonna reach in here. I'm gonna try a color. Most everything on his front visor part is a blue. I'm going to use a sapphire blue from it's a Premier marker. My sister got me, I think, these markers for what was it, Christmas last year? But yeah, I'm going to use I like sapphire for this because it's it's dark, but you can still tell the blue is there. I have some other blues that could go darker blue on this, but at a certain point you get just a little too close to black, and then I feel like there's just there's already plenty of black in here for the mustache, eyebrows, hair, and patch. That I want the blue to pop a little more, so it's slightly brighter than what I see on the reference that I'm using from the comic book, but I'm okay with that because again, I want to tailor this to a more cartoony look. I've already quote unquote dumbed down some of the line work, so it's not as involved of a piece. I see Dave in the chat said Deep Six. That's not a bad idea at all. If I could click on it, pull it up. There we go. Slipstream or Shipwreck in Poly. Now I already have a Shipwreck, so unfortunately I probably won't do that one. Wetsuit and Deep Six from Scott. Both of you guys mentioning Deep Six especially makes me. Wetsuit's great too, which makes me think Torpedo. These are some good suggestions. I'll be filing these away because again, I draw these over when I guest on Aaron's Real American Headcast. I usually draw something over there with him, so then I'll have an idea. Like I said earlier, I kind of pick. I usually pick from whatever cartoon we watch is where I get my reference for whatever I'm going to draw on the show, but not always. So now that I have this Navy manual, I might very well do a Deep Six. Now for a Deep Six, I'll probably need to bust out some of my templates because he's got that dome. I have to find a good template to draw that dome with it. But yeah, him, Torpedo, Wetsuit. I was going to say Cutter, but I think Cutter is actually Coast Guard and not Navy. Another interesting thing that Dave mentioned was Slipstream. I didn't realize he was a Navy pilot. I always thought he was Air Force, but I that is just from like childhood memories. So there's a very good chance I'm wrong on that. We were talking Jarrod's 1980s memories, which granted are better than my modern day memories. I still remember a lot of stuff from the 80s, but I can't remember day-to-day stuff. Where the cramp anymore. It's funny. I'm more secrets of Jarrod on this episode. I'm actually being treated by the VA for memory loss, and it's funny. I was talking to my doc about that, and he was like, you know what? He's like, even dementia patients, like deep in dementia, like those people will still retain some of their favorite memories from their childhood. And that actually made me feel so much happier, because I was like, man, because those are memories. Like, if I'm going to start losing memories, let's keep the GI Joe and the Ghostbusters. Let's keep the 80s. That's what I'm saying. Let's keep the 80s. So that made me feel a little better. Good to know that when I finally slip off, that I'll still have my 80s memories. All right, so I am going to go in with black a little on this top one to give it a depth of shade. I'm gonna bring it out about that far, just because I'm gonna add some two-tone color effects to it. Maybe a little further. There we go. And then give it another one over here, right about there. That way it's got a lighting effect, and we're not overwhelmed with that sapphire blue. I'm going to come over and I'm going to put another line right over that old one to really make it stand. There we go. I like that. I like that. Jim in the chat reminds me that not only is Cutter Coast Guard, he's a female swim coach. And Scott recommends Topside. I don't remember Topside. Let's see. What do you say? Topside. The beard in the 80s style life preserver. I have to look him up. He was he a vehicle driver? It feels like he was probably a vehicle driver. Oh, I just realized that this band up here on him is also blue. So I got to bust old sapphire out and go one more time on this band. Again, in the actual figure or comic book, it's more of an official navy blue, which makes sense since it's the Navy. But I'm cartooning him up a little, so I'm going to brighten the colors just a hair. Plus, it'll look nicer. It'll play off the black a little nicer. And when my print shop gets a hold of it after I scan it in, it'll make life a little easier for them to be able to pull that color out. At least that's what I tell myself. All right. And again, I'm going to pull right over there to get that line nice and solid again. Not bad. All right. So we got the blue visor going on. Since I added a depth of shade earlier, I'm going to do a light depth of shade on this one. I'm going to add a little depth of shade here. Yeah, I'm mad about that. And a little bit right there, just to give it some light play. Now for what is commonly called the scrambled eggs. Oh, little tip from Jim. Topside was from the early 90s. Was he carded or vehicle driver, as my question? And Doc Strange is being nice in chat, saying nice work. I appreciate that, Doc. I do. So I'm going to use a Prismacolor Spanish orange. Again, it's a little bright yellowy because it's gold. In the military, we call that gold leafing on the visor scrambled eggs. So in this case, even though I went a little lighter on the blue than what I have in my reference pick, I'm going a little darker on this because on the comic reference pick that I have, it's very yellow. It's just kind of canary yellow, and I'm going to use this what was it called again? Spanish orange, because I feel like it's closer to gold, which is you know, the actual color of this, the scrambled eggs, as we call it, on the brim of the Navy commander's hat here. Or he's not a commander, he's an admiral. So there we go. And I will use the same gold up here on the eagle. I told you there's always more pencil lines to erase. So get gold of the eagle. The only thing I don't like about using yellow and gold markers, especially yellow, canary yellow, which I'm not using, is it really likes to pick up the ink from either the lines I've already drawn or even the type on the page. But I'm not mad about it in this case because it like adds its own shading. If I wanted a real pure piece, like if you saw the piece I just posted yesterday or 2 days ago, I did a speed racer piece for a client. I posted that on social media. I would not want the ink to bleed into my, and I can look at the tip of this marker right now and see that some of the black has gotten on there, and I don't want that next time I use this marker, I don't want it to put down any lines. So I'm going to go ahead and rub the black lines off the tip so it's a nice clean orange. There we go. It's much cleaner now. You know you're going to get all this information. And speaking of information, Jim is once again helping me out, saying top side was a carded figure. So yeah, it must have been one of those, like he says, a 90s figure. So it must have kind of got by me. Found another pencil line to be erased. Somebody write down how many times I say that on this episode. All right. Now his hat is white, right? So I want to give it a little depth of shade, even though the reference picture that I have doesn't have any depth of shade. I'm going to use a 50% warm gray. I'm also going to put a gold button on the hat that actually isn't in the reference pic, but I like the gold button. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to add a little bit of, like I said, 50% warm gray. It's called 50% warm gray, just to give it a little bit of depth to it. So I'll just highlight some of these lines where there's they have sort of full hat fold lines. I'll use those as my guide to add just a little 50% gray. And as you can see, it's going to make the hat, give it a little more depth to it. Oh, look, pencil line. Who would have guessed? So yeah, we'll do that. Just a slight oomph that I think will make a good little bit of difference on the hat. So it won't be just boring white. It'll have a little personality. I mean, now it's got a little personality to it. In fact, I'm going to bring this one up a little more. Ramp that. Give that a little more shade. Yeah, there we go. A little more personality. Cool. I like it. All right. Now his collar is a light blue, and I happen to have, it's blue slate. That's a bluish gray. I think that'll work. Yeah, I think I'm going to relent on that and switch to Robin's Egg Blue. I'm going to use another Premier marker, and I'm going to go with Robin's Egg Blue. Yeah, this is almost spot on for the reference from the comic. If anybody out there knows who got the original Major Blood that I drew, please tell me. I just realized when I was at Joe Lanta a few weeks ago, and this dude was looking through my prints, and he was like, "You got a Major Blood?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, I got a Major Blood." And that was the moment that I realized, heck no, I don't. I never scanned him in. Fail on my part. I don't have my Major Blood. I forgot to scan him in. So if anybody out there is the original commissioner of Major Blood, please let me know. And because I would love for you to scan that and send me a scan so I can add it to my print set. Yeah, I wouldn't know what I was doing if I wasn't failing all the time. All right, now we are ready for skin tones. I'm going to use a Master's Touch from Hobby Lobby. This is salmon pink, is what they call this one. I have a lot of different skin tones, so I could pick anything for the base, really. I'm going to go salmon pink, even though it's much more of a flesh tone than a pink, for Keelhaul, because I like the fact that the word salmon is in it, and he's a Navy dude. And yeah, inside Jarrod's brain is not the safest place to be, but this is my thought process, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to go with a salmon pink, and then I'll come over it with a darker skin tone to add some shade to it, kind of like I did the hat earlier. And then we'll be about done. Oh, I just realized I need to, I got an area I got to fill in black right here. And the other part of his collar on that robin's egg right here. And this is another part of his shirt. And then there's his jacket. So let me just grab I don't care, some kind of a darker brown. Let's see here. I'll use sienna brown, because you can barely see his brown jacket right there. There we go. All right, back to skin tone with the salmon pink. Scott is never one to be lacking on the jokes. He says accomplishing a Major Blood with no bleed markers is quite an accomplishment. That's not bad. You're on your game today, my friend. Yeah. I was just looking at a picture. I took a picture of the Major Blood, but dang if I didn't scan him in. I should double check that. I scan everything into a particular USB drive. I should go look, just kind of flip through that USB drive just to make sure that he's not on there. Maybe he is. That'd be a nice surprise, but I don't think he is. I think I started scanning them because I was only doing book page originals for the longest time, and then people kept asking for prints, and I said, all right, and went to my local mom and pop print shop to take care of me on everything. And they gave me a very, very affordable deal on my prints. So I was able to pass that savings along to the buyers. So like if you ever see me at a convention, more than likely you will see that my G.I. Joe prints and all my 5x7 book page sketch prints are only $5, because my mom and pop print shop take care of me. And I can pass that, look, pencil on to you, the client, the buyer. So yeah, that's a win for everybody. So I'm using the fine tip part of these of this marker to work around. I'm trying not to drag the ink from the lines I've done, because this, much like yellow, this will pick it up and smear it a little bit. Isn't always the worst, because it'll give it a little bit of its own shading effect, but I don't want it to smear too much. So I'm going to use the fine point to go around all the lines, and then I'll probably use the broader point to fill in the major gaps. Yes, indeed. Look, I found more pencil lines. I try to make sure I get them done before I color over them, because once you colored over them, it like locks them in. So your pencil line will be there forever if you don't erase it before you get the marker over it. Sometimes I just wish it was like the paint programs, where I just click and it just fills. You know what's funny? I tend to still to this day, because I was kind of raised on those Microsoft Paint programs when I was a kid, taking computer classes, and because I was raised on those, I still kind of draw that way to this day. Like I try to, when I do my drawings, like I'm extremely confident that if I clicked fill on this right now, it would fill properly, except for in the eyes. I would have to come back because those aren't quite closed lines, because they just look a little better unfinished. But I just think it's funny that almost every drawing that I do to this day, I have that in the back of my mind. The whole, if you're going to, click it with the little paint fill can, that it would actually, everything would be sealed properly and it would work. Some of you will be, of course, my audience, all of you will be old enough to get that reference and understand it. Yeah, this is what they really pay me for, folks. The mundane, filling in the skin tones. And this burns up markers, man. These large scale ones, man, I'll end up getting maybe 3 drawings, 4 if I'm lucky, before I have to go back to Hobby Lobby and get me some more of these skin tones. I'm always buying skin tones. As you can see on this piece and most of the other pieces that are like this, that's the vast majority of the color that's being put down is skin tone. Skin tones and blacks, of course. Can never have enough black markers. In fact, a lot of times when people ask me, my birthday or Christmas coming up, they'll be like, "Hey, what should I get you, man?" And I'm like, black markers. You can never have enough. They're like, "Don't you have 1,000 Sharpies already?" Yeah, you know how many I need? At least one more. So I tell them, friends and family, get me by all means, get me some black Sharpies. Speaking of which, this pen is starting to pick up some of those blacks and get a little too smudgy for me. So I'm going to get rid of some of that. There we go. Yep, black markers and skin tones, man. You can't go wrong. You got an artist friend, don't know what to get them? Black markers and skin tones. Or templates. You can also never have too many templates. And by templates, I mean like there's a circle template and there's an even bigger circle template and a ruler. And man, I got a ton of different templates here in this little template area. See, now I'm helping you gift shop for your artist friends. All right, just about got that, and I can switch for now to the broader tip. So it'll be a little faster filling in the broader areas. I imagine that buying black markers or skin tones for your art friend, it's kind of like if you're a GI Joe collector, you can always buy your GI Joe collector friend more Vipers or Crimson Guardsmen. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you could never have too many. Build those armies. All right, we've just about gotten. I just got to do the skin tones on the neck, and then I'll do a little shading, and then just about done here. This skin tone is particularly bad. There must be this Master's Touch version is particularly bad about wanting to pick up these blacks and smear them. So I'm gonna be a little careful in that area, and that's okay because again, you want a darker shade down there anyway. So speaking of which, I will use Rose Beige from the Master's Touch series to add shade. Do some shade under his neck here. Bring it up and back. We're going to add some shade here. Always add shade under the nose. Never a bad idea. So, never a bad idea to add shade around the eyes because eyes are usually a little sunken in. It gives it a depth and a little bit of a dynamic look. That's great. I'm going to add a little shade here inside the ear. And right now, I put down some random lines. It looks like the light is sort of coming from this way. So there would be a little shade under the brim of his hat. I'll add that. Yeah, that looks cool. I like that. Happy with that. Happy with that. I'll bring it down a little bit here and outside on his cheek. Tuck it into this little spot right here. A little bit under the mustache. Under there, and then a lot more under here. A little bit under the little cleft chin he's got going on. Drop a few highlights on these areas. Almost got it. Up a little bit like that. I'd say we're just about there. A little bit under these highlights. Jim in the chat says most of us call the shade under the nose a mustache. I wouldn't know. I've never had a mustache. Jarrod's Tales of Woe. While I've got this, oh, what color was this again? Rose beige out. I'm actually going to add just a little to the scrambled eggs to give them a little depth. It'll make it look even more like gold. Just random plots, and then like a few places on his insignia. It'll just give it a little bit more depth, like so. And we've got a pretty decent Keelhaul. So on my off screen here, I keep all my I keep all my book page schedule on Drive. So I'm going to look up some of the ones I've done right down here, but I want there to be a nice amount of continuity. I'm really taxing my old computer right now because this fine cam that I'm using to shoot straight down, because for some reason StreamYard won't let me flip the top down camera. Everything would be upside down. I have to bring in an additional program, which is pretty demanding on the processor. And now I'm looking stuff up online. So my poor computer is being very taxed. And a lot of it has to do with the top down camera. All right, let's see. Pulling up one of my pictures. I just randomly picked somebody. I think it was a beat or something. And we shall see. Because all of a sudden my online drive is just spinning and staring at me. Yeah, a little too much processing power required there, I guess. Anyways, yeah, I'm going to sign it right down there. And not only am I going to sign, I'm going to do a little bit more polish. What happened to my no bleed pen? Which one of y'all took my no bleed pen? Where the heck did it go? Oh, here it is, right in front of me. Snake, it would have bit me. So not only am I going to sign it right down here, while I have the no bleed, I see anything where I like to sharpen, basically give it a little bit more taper on the line. Do that right now. Plus, after I put the marker over some of these detail lines, it gives a little smudge, so it's really boldening these little detail lines. I'm just boldening them up a little bit and giving them a little bit more of a defined shape. You probably can't see it with that camera angle, but when you get up real close, like, it'll make a difference. At least to me. It's really firming up these shapes, these lines, and I'm giving the very end of the line where it terminates, I'm giving it a little bit of a finer point. I assure you it looks better now. Just take my word for it. Yeah, these detail lines all look just a little better. These actually came out pretty good over here. I don't think they need a ton of work except for some. When I put the gray over it, it fuzzed them up a little bit. So I'm going to make them a little more solid. The more crisp and solid you make them, especially when you do a cartoon style drawing, a slightly crisper line will make it look a little more cartoon legit, a little sharper, a little nicer. Okay, right here needs a. There we go. All right. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be that on Keelhaul. Well, maybe. I think your boy might get a little stupid and creative real quick. I'm going to give our boy Bradley Doug a little more for his money. Since I got my templates laying around, let's add just a little something for Bradley Doug here. Help with my page kind of squared up. That's right, we're going into extra innings here, folks. Just because I like Bradley Doug. I'm going to grab that. Of course, you would get stuck on everything, wouldn't you? Oh, yeah. We're going to spice it up. All right. So out on the C's, we are going to add a vibrant coral colored sun going down. Give it a bit of an oceanic 80s-ish, which applies nicely here to this property. Background effect. Y'all tell Bradley Doug that Jarrod went above and beyond for him on this one. The old Stratoviper. Which one did I use? Just out of curiosity, was it that one? Was that one? And for the water, I want to pick a color that's a little bit dark because we want this to play off of it. I want it to be fun, though, sort of an 80s fun. Parrot green, maybe. Parrot green might be the way to go. But you know what? I just bought a new box of art markers that has a lot of different grays and greens and blues in it. So I'm going to look in there. Just picked these up on clearance at TJ Maxx. I'm thinking maybe pastel blue is kind of feeling a little 80s-ish. Put those over here. Yeah, I think that'll work just fine. My little trick there is I put it down. You can always test it on another piece of paper or put it down like when I put it down this little corner here. That way, if I wanted to go darker, I could just color over it. Nobody would be the wiser. But I like that. Oh, it's going to look so nice with that coral orange. Yeah. Yeah, this was a good call. A little darker, not too dark, total 80s vibe. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. Again, I don't want it to pick up and smear, so I'm going to ride real close to these lines. And then I'll come back with the broad tip for a quick color in. And that'll add a nice little effect to this piece. There we go. The thing about, I've heard about these acrylic markers that hide the streak lines even better. Because, I mean, these, again, I got these on clearance at TJ Maxx, so they're not the world's best. They're decent. I really like this color that just laid down. I'm able to hide most of the stroke lines. But I would be interested in trying. I've heard some of these acrylic markers have no stroke lines, which I'd be interested to check that out. But I'm very happy with that. That is cool. What's funny is I'm looking at the screen and it's playing a little darker on the screen than it is in to the human eye. So that's pretty cool. Not mad about that at all. I'm just gonna embolden a little bit here. Once again, just a little bit. So he stands off that just a little more. Especially now that he's got some color behind him. Really thicken that line. Yeah, there he goes. Pulls off that pretty nicely now. All right. Cool. All right. I think I'm done for Reels. Thank you guys for who kept chatting with me during this. That made it nicer. Nice to have people to talk to. And it was fun kind of talking about my process going through it. I hope you guys got something out of that. And if not, well, at least I filled up the dead air. So there's that. Just back in my newly acquired marker set. I suppose that's it. I'll be doing a recording tonight for the Longbox Crusade. I am recording with Captivating Kathy Bright, the MVP, for her show. Sherlock Holmes, LBC regular Sherlock Holmes podcast. We're going to be talking about Jeremy Brett's Sherlock Holmes. The episode is going to be about The Last Vampire, which was it was either second or third of 3 episodes from season 6. So that's what we'll be recording. And I think our guest is going to be writer extraordinaire, Bobby Nash. So that's what's going on for Longbox tonight. That will be public in a couple of months. But so now's your warning. Go ahead and watch The Last Vampire with Jeremy Brett. You'll be ahead of the game. Thank you, Doc Strange, who said fun as usual. Thanks, Jared, and I appreciate you guys. I am going to turn off the very demanding on my system Find Share camera. Go back to the one that's not so demanding. Hey, it's me with my drawing glasses on. And thank you guys again for being here. Thank you for being friends of the Longbox Crusade Network. Thank you, Jim, for the kind words about the drawing. We appreciate all you guys. Check out Longbox Crusade on pretty much anything. You type Longbox Crusade into pretty much any social media. You're going to find us. We are mainly a podcasting service, so type us into your podcatcher. But, of course, we're also here on YouTube as well, so we make your life easy. We appreciate it. And until next time, I am Jarrod Ulrich, the Yard Sale Artist. You can see right there at Yard Sale Artist. If you want to give me a follow and chat with me, I would love it. At Yard Sale Artist, X, Facebook, and Instagram. And it's pretty much the same with Longbox Crusade. At Longbox Crusade on X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Skip, Scap, Skabobble, all that stuff. Until next time, folks, thanks again for hanging out with me. This has been fun. I will act frozen.